Hello and welcome to another episode of the Bonus Points podcast. I'm your host, Joe Garrett, as always been joined by my co-host, Ollie Guy.
Hello. Hello, Joe.
Hello, Ollie. First podcast of it's first podcast of the new year, 2025, because I don't know when people are listening to this. Also, it just feels like we haven't done one of these in so long because we did the Christmas special and then we did the Game of the Year podcast. It feels like it's been a long time since these couple of nerds have sat down and chatted about a game.
Chatted about a very specific game, yeah. Like when I was writing the notes, I was thinking that, like, God, it's been a long time since I've gone and got the questions and pulled it all together. But, mate, we're back on the train. Like, I think for Helldivers, we're doing Helldivers 2, if you couldn't tell from the title of the video. I think for this one, we kind of really only played a week, right?
Yeah.
Because of Christmas period, Christmas break. So we chose something that was a bit shorter and a bit easier to do within a week. But yeah, it's good to be back. I've already got the next one lined up as well, so fully back on the train.
Yeah, we're going into the new year strong. If anyone was worried about what the new year would be for bonus points, it will be much the same as last year. So
yeah, although strong, like I am unwell, but not that strong. I am ready to crumble. So you're going to be editing out a lot of coughs. I'm coughing already.
You don't have to prove your point, Ollie, right? You hadn't coughed once until you said, it's like you think people won't believe you. Like, you're not calling in sick to work.
It's one of those coughs that, like, when you start laughing and you start, like, wheezing, that's when it comes out.
Oh, you're in trouble being on a podcast with me, Ollie. Oh, it's the worst person, Mr. Funny Man Long Nose.
Oh, okay. Try and control yourself. Feel sorry for me.
Okay, well, we'll be very serious. We'll talk about the very serious game of Helldivers 2. So let's start off, if you have it ready, just giving a summary in case there is anyone out there on Super Earth who has not heard of Helldivers 2.
Okay, so Helldivers 2 is a 2024 cooperative third-person shooter game developed by Arrowhead Game Studios and published by Sony Interactive Entertainment for the PS5 and the PC. The game is a direct sequel to Helldivers 2015. Set in the 22nd century, the story follows the Helldivers, an elite force of shock troops dispatched to combat various threats to humanity. Helldivers 2 was released on the 8th of February 2024, was a critical and commercial success, having sold in excess of 12 million copies within 3 months of its release. It won a number of awards and is considered one of the best games of 2024.
Yeah, that, like, obviously I knew the game was successful, but like it was only when kind of really doing my research that I realized to the level. Like, it's PlayStation's fastest selling game ever. Like, out of all of their games. Which, obviously, that's really, really impressive, but obviously it launched in unison on PC. So normally they're only launching to play on PlayStation consoles. So it did have that benefit of, I think it was hugely successful on PC as well. So it wasn't just the PlayStation market, but it's still, it sold faster than Uncharted or Last of Us or whatever, God of War, whatever giant PlayStation franchise you think of.
Yeah, I suppose the PC market is absolutely massive. Also, the fact that it's a multiplayer game, I guess that means you'll probably buy it and be like, saying to your friends, like, oh, you should buy it as well, so that I've got someone to play with.
Yeah, I also believe it wasn't full price either. It was like about £40 or something.
No idea. My brother had it, so I borrowed his copy. So I don't actually know how much it is.
Well, also I bought it it's probably a little bit less now than it was at launch. So maybe for video people, I'll look up how much it cost at launch and put it up rather than just guess and throw a random number out there. That's probably not the way to do this. So neither of us played this game when it came out, but a lot of people in the bonus points community did. It was kind of big on the bonus points Discord. Yeah. I always just thought it looked quite cool. I just never really had the time. These sorts of games where it's like really co-op focused, I'm like, okay, to do this properly, I need to arrange a time with like a group of people to play it, which is sometimes just too much work. That's enough for me to just not jump into it when busy with work and all of the other podcast games we're doing. So when it kind of came about as like, oh, this could be our Christmas game, I was excited to be like, okay, I will commit to doing that, and we did play it in that way. So this was both of us kind of looking at it fresh. So we weren't playing this game throughout the year.
Also, worth noting, it was the community voted game of the year, which is how it ended up on our radar, really. The only reason I never really looked at it before, except for what you obviously just said about getting people together to play games can be quite difficult. I do find with co-op games where you require like 4 people, I tend to play the intro with 4 different people and then never play it again because it's hard to get everyone together at the same time. Another reason why I did skip this, which is like a very silly reason, but completely understandable, is I don't have PlayStation Plus. Like I have an Xbox, I have Xbox Live. So it's like PlayStation Plus I only have for this game. So that's partly why I didn't. Because I was like,
and your PC would probably struggle a bit.
My PC would explode.
Yeah.
So yeah, that's why I ended up skipping it at the time. But was it like at all what you were expecting?
Yeah, I think it was exactly what I was expecting, to be honest. Like just from like listening to podcasts and reviews and stuff. Like there's like little bits that I didn't know about and I was surprised, and things that I thought were better or worse or whatever. You know, like it's not like, oh, I knew exactly what the story of this would be before I played it, but it is like the type of game that it is and the experience that it is what I had expected from kind of the media I had seen around it. It sounds like to you, maybe not.
Yeah, completely my own fault, but I thought it was more like Battlefield or Battlefront. Like I thought it was a big team, like 16 versus 16 type game. Like just from the trailers and stuff, when you watch it, obviously there's so much going on.
So did you think it was like PvP?
PvP and PvE, and like I thought you were in a squad of 4, but that 4 was part of a 16 or a 32, and it was like mag or something, more than the game we actually got. So like the game's, despite how mad it is, was much more low key than I thought it was going to be. I thought it was going to be much more like constant hellfire rain and like deathmatch, capture the flag, stuff like that. Like I didn't know.
I guess like, there's like a trailer version of every game. There's like the trailer version of, like a Battlefield experience. Like the trailer is so bombastic, then you play the game and it's mostly running to a point and dying. It's the average player is what the actual experience is. I think maybe it was really popular in the 4J Studios office as well.
Right.
Like on lunch breaks, they're very busy normally. They're not just playing it. Helldivers 2, but like there was a lot of people playing it there, and so I'd kind of see it quite a lot there. And then also just knowing, obviously, this is the sequel. Obviously, Helldivers 1 was a popular game, but different league to this, and that was a top-down twin-stick shooter, but in the same style where it's 4 players playing together, co-op, PvE. And I actually went back today and watched a review of Helldivers 1, and I was like, oh, it's very similar. It's got the whole stratagems. It's the same factions. It actually looks extremely similar to Helldivers 2. It's really the perspective seems to be the big change, which I think is what allowed this game to kind of blow up in the way it did.
Yeah, I think I played the first one, but only very briefly. Like I think it was on PS Plus. It came out in 2015, so I would have had a PlayStation 4 then, so I think I must have played it.
Yeah, it came out on PS3 and Vita as well. Helldivers 1.
Oh, right, Vita. Okay. Must have flown off the shelves. So,
yeah, you said it kind of wasn't what you expected. Were you glad that it is kind of what it is? Like, were you hoping for that the version of Helldivers 2 in your mind?
This was definitely better, because with those big online games, as you said, I do just run in and die. Like I'm not good enough at games like that. So yeah, it was way more, this game is way more considered, and like you spend a lot more time planning and strategizing than I assumed that you would, from the fact that it's called Helldivers and what it looks like. And also the like art direction is so much better than I thought it would. Like I've barely seen anything about this game. Like I probably saw the initial trailer and was like, well, I don't have PS Plus. I just never looked at it ever again. But like it was way more like colorful and like funny, and like it's just better than I thought it was going to be. So
what you were saying about kind of the approachable nature of it compared to kind of those PvP games is something that I've heard a lot. I was listening yesterday to the Min-Max Game of the Year, and there were several people on there that were saying like they don't play shooters, and they were like, this is the like they were saying like the last shooters that they played were Splatoon, and then before that it was like Left 4 Dead, because they're basically they're not kind of good at that kind of game. They don't really enjoy them, but there's like enough different types of weapons, and the co-op nature means that like you can play this game and you don't need to be a Counter-Strike pro and getting headshots all the time. Like, you can have a setup and be a helpful member of the team without precision aim. And I think that's probably what's helped its broad appeal, that and it being kind of cross-play between PS5 and PC. Like, I can imagine like a lot of like families getting into this, like a lot of like parents playing with like their children, or a lot of, you know, people that are in a couple and sort of the member of the relationship that isn't the big gamer, like actually enjoying this and being like, hey, this is a game that you could enjoy and play with me. Like, I think it probably had a wider reach because of it, the approachable side, and the fact that it has got that lighter tone and it's not all like hoorah army man. It is, well, it kind of is that, but it's sort of an extreme version of that, and it's got that bright comical tone. It's not like modern warfare or like World War II shooter. I think that's probably helped it reach the wide appeal it did. Yeah,
it's like, it's pretty easy. Like, I ended up yesterday, I played pretty much all day with lots of different groups, and we landed on playing on extreme difficulty, and at the time I was only level 9, but like we still did not come close to dying.
So what's extreme? Is that the top one?
I think there's 9, and I think extreme is about 6 or 7.
Okay, I didn't realize there's so many, because we ended up from when we were playing settling on, I think, is it called challenging or challenge?
That was pretty easy though, right? Like,
we were saying like, oh, we could put up. So something that I didn't realize is that basically there was an issue with balance earlier on in the game's life cycle. And so they were trying to do a big rebalance. They had this whole big 60-day plan, which was meant to be rebalancing the game, but also fixing a bunch of bugs. And one of the problems is that a lot of people had fun initially, and then once they were kind of getting to end game or getting higher level, the balancing wasn't working out and people were finding it too easy. And one of the ways that they have kind of decided to tackle it was introducing a new enemy, the Illuminate, which wasn't there at launch. They were like, you know, we're not going to make the bugs and the robots like super strong, because that's kind of going to be an endless battle of balancing and getting it right, and they don't want to ruin it for new players. And so they were like, okay, we're going to add this new race, and you know, anyone can play it, but like the idea is if you really do want a challenge, these are the ones that are going to give that to you, which I think is kind of a smart way of handling it, because there's so many games that end up kind of getting into this power creep of like, oh, let's make this too strong, like make this stronger, and then we're going to make this stronger, and then it's like an endless battle. Or they go the opposite route and they're nerfing stuff, and suddenly this gun that felt really powerful and was giving you like this great power trip and blowing everything up, it's like, oh, now they're making it weaker, now that feels less fun. And so I think they've kind of tackled that in a pretty smart way.
Yeah, I didn't actually know that, but now you said that, it does make a lot of sense. Especially because like the bugs and the automatons, the strategy for fighting them is not too different, despite the fact that they are very different, and the planets they appear on are very similar. They're kind of like wastelands, whereas the Illuminate, they're more like urban environments, and they're much more likely to swarm you, which kind of instantly means all the strategies that you would be relying on for like long range combat just don't work anymore.
Yeah.
So all of a sudden it's like, okay, we do actually have to think about this differently now, because I remember originally I was playing with Mike from a Discord, and he was recommending the shotgun, and I was like, why would I want the shotgun? Like, I don't want the enemies near me. I want something long distance. Then when we started doing Illuminate missions on Extreme, it was like, I don't have a choice. Like, there's so many of them that they're going to be right up in your face. But yeah, go on, sorry. What were you going to say?
I was just because related to that, was it with the Illuminate and saying them overwhelming you, was when we were playing with Mike and Muppet, 2 members of the Discord, and we had an objective in like the city against them, and it was like literally just like probably like one street over from where we were, and we realized we'd probably been there for about 15 minutes just holding our ground, just like fighting to survive with just waves and waves. We're like, wait, these enemies aren't going to stop coming, and we were like I can't remember who it was, it might have been Muppet, was like, we just got to go. We just got to push through it, because all we're doing is like surviving, and we're not going to complete this mission. And I was like, oh yeah, like they aren't going to stop coming. Like, it did put us in that scenario.
Yeah. Maybe we should quickly just talk about how the game works. People that haven't seen it.
Yeah, good point. We've kind of got a bit, dived in too deep, pun intended.
Whee! So basically,
oh no, I'm actually made him cough.
The way it works is you pick a planet, then you jump into that planet. You hell dive in, so you come down in a pod, and then on that planet you normally have 1 or 2 main objectives that will be like, they're pretty simple. Okay, I'm not going to sugarcoat it. It's like blow up the thing, or well, that's it. Blow up the thing or remove the thing, and then basically what you do is you go and do those objectives, but on the way there are like, you can get rid of an enemy encampment, you can get rid of an enemy radio tower, you can set up a satellite, do all these things, and all of those will like kind of boost your experience points and your money. So when you evacuate out at the end of the mission, you can like level up your ship, level up your guns and your character and stuff like that. That's the like overall way the game loop works. When you're in the actual levels themselves, it's like you are playing a third-person shooter. It's pretty standard. It is very good feedback for a third-person shooter, like really good camera work and stuff like that, and like the movement options you have for diving and going prone, all really good. And then you have another thing called stratagems, which is you can like call in support for yourself, like new weapons or artillery, basically. And they are, the genius of them is to call them in. You have to do like almost like a fighting game input. Which appears on the screen, so you don't have to remember it. But
it's just like, arrows on the D-pad.
It's just arrows, yeah. Like, you just like
half circles on the analog stick or anything.
But so it's like they come up and it'd be like 7 inputs, but because you're being attacked from every direction, it's like all of a sudden very stressful to do what would normally be quite simple. Like
I remember. It was when Dead Space was being released, and I can't remember who it was. Maybe Glenn Schofield or someone was talking about how you got to shoot the limbs off, and you need that precision and it's sort of thing. It's not difficult to do, but when it's stressful, it is. And he was talking about like, if you've got to put a key in a lock, you do it without even thinking about it. But if you were being chased, that suddenly becomes really these really easy tasks suddenly become really difficult when you're under stress.
Yeah, I think that the game generally has a lot of small things that you'd consider in other games, but the way they're just used here is really clever. And I think that's what the lasting appeal is. Like the stratagem call-in thing is very clever and it works every time. No matter how many times I've done it, it's still stressful trying to do it. And also the other thing, which those other games have, is this game has friendly fire like permanently on. You can't switch it off. Rather than it being annoying, for some reason this game, it's just funny. Like it's like not annoying to be friendly fired. Like it's like you get killed and it's like will always be something stupid, like one of your friends has called something in and the gun coming down will kill you, or like they'll call in a artillery strike and they won't realize that you're standing like exactly where it's going to come down, and then it's always like a laugh when someone kills you rather than it being irritating. I
was in my mech, right? And I just took a step backwards and just stood on you. And I didn't even realize like you were complaining about it, and I was like didn't even know what you were complaining about, and I was like, oh wait, was that me? Oh sorry, I just took a step back. Didn't see you there.
No,
and also friendly fire for yourself as well. Like I played a few rounds by myself, and like I called it like a turret, and then like I'm just there shooting next to it, and then I'm in between an enemy and the turret, and it just shoots me, and I'm like, oh, that's embarrassing. Like, I'm glad no one saw I'm doing friendly fire by myself.
Yeah. So anyway, that's generally how the game works. It's just that it's very much the sum of its parts add up to be greater than you'd expect, I think. Yeah,
and then I think I'd add on to another core part like that. That's kind of the main like gameplay side, but I think the progression is another huge part of it, is that once you kind of finish your mission based on how well you did and what missions you completed and what you collected, you get like a bunch of different resources. There's a big list of different types of resources that takes a little while to learn, but once you get your head around it, it's not too bad. And then you can normally buy something new to then use in your next mission. So whether it's a new stratagem or a new weapon or even just a new outfit or a moat or something, there's normally something new that you're getting, and then it takes a long time. I never actually got to the point where I did it. Like if you're getting these supplies, you can then upgrade the ship, which seems to be sort of, I mean, if you considered this game as a roguelike, that's sort of the more permanent progression, where a lot of the stratagems, some of them I'm sure you could say are almost objectively better than others, but they're generally pretty balanced by just the way they work. It's like, the thing that does loads of damage, but it only fires one and has a long cooldown compared to the other. A lot of them you could be preference or depending on the situation you're in. It's not like you're getting level 1 airstrike and then level 2 airstrike that's just better. Whereas it seems like the upgrades upgrades that you're doing to your ship are kind of much more permanent. Oh, you're just better now. Like it just has something that affects the emission, and you're just better. So that's kind of that more longer term progression. And I reckon.
They do stack as well, those ship ones. They look like you can only choose one or the other, but you can actually just buy them all. And they will just like, stack up. And
I think you have to get them like linearly, I think, for the different
I only
areas,
bought one.
I believe.
I only bought one. But the extreme difficulty, I was getting like 15 of whatever the samples per mission. So definitely get more the higher difficulties you do.
Okay, maybe that's why I'm sticking on.
Because me and you, we were getting like,
mode.
we were getting like 1 or 2 a mission, weren't we, when we were doing it on easy or on medium. But yeah, on extreme, I was getting like 15, 16. So
okay, yeah, because like even like the cheapest upgrades are like 60 or something. So that's the thing, that you're not upgrading that every few rounds. Like that's a more long term thing. But you know, you're always unlocking other things at the same time, and they seem to be, as far as I can tell, less gameplay changing and more you're kind of just stronger, as far as I could tell from reading through the descriptions of them. Obviously, we already kind of mentioned it earlier, like we kind of dipped our toe into this game for like a week. So like this, it's like us kind of discussing a week playing Helldivers 2 with a game like this. You know, there'll be a lot of depth and a lot of areas of the game that, you know, you're only going to experience if you've played the game for, you know, tens of hours, which we haven't.
Yeah, I think I got to like level 12 in the end. I think that's about where I called it. I'm not sure. I managed to buy some of the level 10 stuff as well. So, but the people we're playing with were all like, we played with loads of different people, and they're all about level 27, 28. So we got to like go in the car, drive the mech, you know, see some of the crazier stratagems as well, because they can call them in.
It's one of the nice things about stratagems is they can be for the team. And like there's a big element when you're equipping your character where you can select different things. It's like, well, I've got this, so you can, you can get that. And then there's a lot of things like, oh, I want to try out this. And so the people we're playing with, like they would call it down for me, you know, and then I'd give them what I have. And that's kind of a nice way to give you a little preview of what you could eventually end up getting permanently to see if you want it. And then I ended up messing around. Like I bought the thing that releases like a big minefield, and I was like, when I was buying, I was like, this is just causing trouble. Like I know this is probably not the thing I should do, but like the way it releases them is really cool. And so I'd just be like, everyone watch out! Like I'm calling it a minefield. Like I probably shouldn't, but like it can work out really effectively. But you do really need strong communication, and I did find that the level of fun I had in this game when playing with friends compared to playing on my own, there was like such a huge disparity. Like when I was playing with randomers, like I'm not the type of person that's going to go on mic and speak to randomers. Like I think this is a game that you could probably end up actually meeting pretty cool people and, you know, end up like, oh, let's add friends and, you know, play together. But for my experiences, like I had people just kind of running off by themselves because they were high level and just wanted to do what they want. I had one game and the guy just team killing me, like on purpose, like just shotgunning me, and I'm like, why? Like, so this is a game I would only play with a group of people I know.
Yeah, I really had all the extremes. Like my very first game I dropped into, it was me and one other guy doing the Illuminate, which like the zombie type enemies. Only me and him at night running around in the city. That's when I was first of all was like, this game is nothing like what I expected, because it was like a survival horror game almost. He was like pulling down stratagems for me and like pinging them. And then he saw that I leveled up to like level 1 or level 2. And then he messaged me and was like, oh, I hope you enjoy the game. Like, I'll see you in another drop. And I was like, God, people are lovely on this. Second game I did, just a guy just team killing us over and over again. And I was like, this is ridiculous. Like, why are you even here? How is this fun?
I wouldn't expect, like, I'm surprised that this is a game that would have people like I only played 2 games with randomers, and I had one who was fine, they were doing the thing, but they weren't like, you know, they were kind of just running off a bit by themselves, and then one troll, and I was sort of like, maybe I've just got unlucky, but like this isn't the sort of game I would expect from that, because I just don't, like, it's hurting them as well, because everything's shared. If you pick up a supply, if you pick up anything, like, it's shared amongst everyone, so there's no like, oh, here's a thing, let's fight to get it. Like, I guess the only exception is things that are affecting in game, if there's a weapon or a vehicle or something, like that person is using it in game, but in terms of longer term progression, like, it's all shared, so it's like you're only hurting yourself. and you're an idiot.
Yeah, it's like, so pickups are all shared, money's shared, and like if I capture the objective, like it counts both of us doing it. It's not just, it doesn't say like Ollie raised the flag or whatever. It's literally like, you've all done it together. But yeah, in terms of it being a like live service game, which despite the fact I don't think they've ever said that it is a live service game, I'm much more deep into live service games than you, because obviously I play Dead by Daylight, which is, I just got into last year. I found that the trappings of that, which some people like, some people don't like, the Dead by Daylight ones are much better at getting me to go back, because it will be things like, do this thing 3 times in a game, do this thing 5 times over as many games as you want. Whereas with Helldivers 2, you kind of only have the daily mission, which kind of completes itself, and then you don't have anything else. And in terms of the unlocks, like, it has this thing called acquisitions, where basically you earn medals, then you use the medals to buy guns and stuff like that. There's only 9 pages of it, which like seems like quite a lot, but I played with someone who returned to the game and they got all of their medals like back paid from like all the events that they missed, and they bought the entire thing. And then they were like, well, I can't buy anything else unless I spend money. So I don't really know if there's enough in it, like unless you want to spend money, I don't know if there's enough there to keep me coming back.
Because I'm kind of split on that, because I get it, like that sort of progression is satisfying, and that sort of carrot on the stick and those sort of like personal sub-objectives like engaging, and there's a science to getting that stuff right. But then I'm also someone who's always in the opinion of, I hate it when I'm playing a game and it's like, oh, there's someone on my team and I can tell they're not trying to do the objective.
Yes, I know.
They need to kill 25 enemies with grenades, and so they're only throwing grenades. And I remember there was a video doc thing like ages ago from when World at War came out, Call of Duty World at War, like the game after Modern Warfare 1. And Treyarch they were saying about how they don't add achievements for multiplayer stuff, like just Xbox achievements or whatever, or PlayStation trophies, because they want everyone focusing on the game and they don't want people trying to do all these secret tasks. And then like I actually thought of that recently because I played a bit of Black Ops 6 multiplayer, and it's like that's as much the game as the objective is there. All of those daily challenges and kill with this guns and stuff, and it's like, oh, obviously, obviously like Treyarch is always a different company to the one back then.
Yeah, times have changed for sure.
Times, so I'm not going to be like, you said like 15 years ago, but I'm like, I was kind of in the camp of I liked, and that's a PvP game as well. So I think it matters more in that. And so I'm kind of a little bit split, because I do think it makes sense to give, if the core game isn't enough and you do want something extra, that an extra sense of progression, or just a bit of guidance of like, hey, get 10 kills with this gun. Oh, I don't normally use shotguns, I'll try it out. Actually, I love shotguns. Like, I think that can be really beneficial, but that tends to not be something that I look forward to, because maybe I'm a bit old fashioned, and my 2 biggest games I've played online are, well, probably 3 are Overwatch, Halo, and Quake, and none of those have really had that. Or Halo, I mostly played custom games. Like Quake, I don't have any progression or whatever in that. Like there's nothing that affects gameplay that you can unlock, and I don't care about cosmetics because it's a first-person game. And then like at Overwatch, when I played it, it was kind of just loot boxes you got, and I never did any challenges. So I've not got into one of those live service games where I'm trying to do daily challenges or anything. Obviously I play Dead by Daylight now, but I used to play Fortnite, and that's exactly the same, where it's like, Fortnite's pretty close to Helldivers actually, because you're jumping in to do something, but there's also all these side things you can do. But what I like about Dead by Daylight is it will be like complete 3 generators, in over a few games. And then what I'll do is I'll build my character like skill tree to be like doing generators really fast. So it's like I'm kind of like problem solving at the same time, and that's what really brings me back to that game, is like I'm building out these characters who like are specifically good at certain things in order to complete these missions. Whereas this game doesn't really have anything like that. And I also feel like when you complete a mission, it tells you like the war effort, and it will be like your war effort
towards the overall goal was 0.0001%,
Yeah.
which like is funny.
Yeah, I was going
But
to say.
also,
I like that.
it is funny. But also, I was a little bit like, why am I bothering? Like, what are we doing here?
I wonder if that was put in place before they knew the game was going to sell like 100 million copies. And I wonder whether they thought that percentage would be high. I do think that is. Yeah, I mean, I think that's quite funny, but I get what you're saying. It does feel a bit like, well, yeah, what am I gaining from this?
Yeah, like I kind of, this whole game, like, obviously I had fun. Playing with your friends is fun. It's a great game. But I did always kind of feel like I'm not really having any effect on any of this. Like, you know, it's like I'm calling an artillery strike. Everyone's calling an artillery strike. It's like, which flavor of explosion am I calling in? Like, it doesn't really make too much of a difference. Which of the 4 machine guns am I holding?
I think
I just
the
didn't really, I
stratagems
felt like
are
I wasn't
more
really
varied than that. Like, you can have a robot that follows around and shoot from you, or a mech, or like the turret is very different.
In terms of that, the fact that we never really struggled, I didn't really feel like we weren't like, oh, we need a robot now. Like, we need it.
I think that was our
like,
difficult. We picked the wrong difficulty section.
Yeah,
I don't think that's the game's fault.
No. I don't know. I just kind of like, after this is done, I don't feel like I need to go back to it. Like, you know what I mean? Like, it really hasn't captured. Like, I enjoyed playing it with my friends, but like, that's because I like hanging out with my friends, you know?
Yeah.
But yeah, it's not a bad game by any means. I just kind of feel like I'm on the, I don't know. What I've written down, the example I wrote down was you can buy explosive shrapnel for an airstrike, but it's like the shrapnel's quite small and I'm one of 4 people and there's all airstrikes going off all the time anyway. So does it really make a difference? I don't know if it does. Like, it's all very inconsequential. Like,
I do think the difficult would help there. I do know what you mean. There are sometimes when like a fight's happening and it's sort of like everyone's almost rushing to put their airstrike out first because it's like, oh, there's a chance to use my airstrike. And that's like the cooldown going.
Yeah, I think the main thing, I mean, maybe this would be sorted by us doing a high difficulty, but like when you think about Left 4 Dead and you're having an extraction in Left 4 Dead and like one of your teammates is down, someone's thrown down a Molotov and like it's absolute chaos. I don't feel like this game ever gets to that level, despite how it looks, because I don't feel like there's really any threat. Like, you have so many respawns and you have so much time that even if the time runs out, you don't lose. You just can't call in any more respawns. It's like, we were never really, like, we are the most powerful things in this universe. And I kind of feel like I want to be like with my mates struggling and, you know, calling in this last
But isn't that just once again like, we were playing on the wrong difficulty though?
I mean, I don't know.
Like,
I assume so, but I don't know.
I think like put it to max difficulty and like, you know, and then like maybe put it to the highest difficulty rather than starting low and going up. Maybe we start high and go down. Maybe that would be the way to do it, because it does sound like a lot of the issues. Like I get what you're saying, and like for the games that we played together, like especially when we were playing with Mike and Muppet, who were, you know, high level and all the good stuff. Like we were rarely pushed to the brink. We mainly died by killing each other by accident,
which is funny. It is fun. It's funny, you know.
But I think that does seem like that's all just down to we were playing on the wrong difficulty.
Yeah, maybe. I mean, we'll have to try it, but we only play the difficulties. I mean, I played on extreme, so I was up there, but obviously not max difficulty, but I was up there. I just never felt like I was getting into a sort of jam, like diving into hell. Didn't really feel like it. Kind of just like, you know, we are the masters of this, of this planet.
Also, to kind of briefly go back to kind of like the live service element.
Yeah.
I didn't really, because obviously going in, we didn't know how much was added compared to how much was at launch. So I've kind of tried to get as much of like the history of like, you know, since February of this game for what was new and what's changed. And there's, you know, it seems like it's progressed a lot. Like it won like ongoing game, a game of the year. The thing that I found like, and I think it's maybe just a psychological thing, the fact that the only way to unlock like new equipment in terms of like weapons and like outfits which affect gameplay is through the war bonds, which is the battle pass. And you start off with a free one, and within that free one you get super credits, which is the premium, you know, paid for currency. And maybe it's just a psychological thing, but I don't like the fact that the way, you know, apart from weapons you call in through stratagems, and then there's also the superstore, which is where you can just outright buy stuff and it cycles through, and you can also get like weapons in there that affect gameplay, which means you could put in money and instantly have an advantage. Obviously, it's PvE, so it's not, it's not the same as a PvP game. Like, I didn't like the fact that like that is the progression is you kind of getting these medals and progressing through this battle pass. Even though it always stays there, it will never run out, and then you can buy premium war bonds, battle passes afterwards. There was something about that kind of rubbed me the wrong way a little bit.
Yeah, what I found with season passes, battle passes, whatever you want to call them, is that I was exactly like you, where I was like, oh, I don't want to buy this, that, or the other. But I have, and it is annoying when they are gameplay related. Obviously, it is PvE, so if someone does spend money, it actually just benefits you because they've got the good thing that they can use. I have found though that since I have started buying season passes and stuff in games, I'm like way more engaged with the game. I'm like way more tuned in because I'm like, I now have invested interest in this, that like I want to progress the battle pass, not just because I want to unlock the stuff, but it's like, I have little challenges associated with it as well. That's like, oh, I actually want to do it because, I've bought it. But I do get what you mean.
I can't think of another, so I'm not against the idea of battle passes in general. I'm not opposed to, I think Fortnite has a great business model. It's all cosmetic. The battle pass, for people, it keeps people coming back. I actually think the little sub challenges in a battle royale are a bit less because it's there's 100 players here. If one person's
of course,
off trying to find hidden chests, it kind of doesn't really matter. I could drop in solo or with my mates, and that won't affect me. If they're that's better for me. They'll be easier to kill if they're all focusing on finding hidden bunnies or whatever their little challenge is fine. But I think the fact that because the lobby is like a place you walk around your ship. My ship was called the Panther of Family Values. I got to name my ship. And you go to different screens. This is the screen to buy stratagems. This is the screen to equip things. And then it's press X, square on PlayStation to go to the store essentially. And that's where the battle pass is. And then the fact that that's how I get any new weapons or any new. It's not I'm progressing and unlocking new weapons in the game. It's oh no, it's all of that is through the battle pass. It's not I'm unlocking new weapons through the game, but there's special skins or whatever in the battle pass or unique, the electric version of the gun. It's that's if I'm going to get a new pistol, it's only through the battle pass.
There's no free track. It's premium only.
Well, there's a free war bond, so it may just be a psychological difference.
You just get through it. You get through it so quickly. And also the premium ones only have 3 pages, and the free one has 9. So it's even as you're buying them, you're going to get less.
Yeah,
I guess in an ideal world, they would refresh the war bond every quarter or 6 months, and it would have a free version and a paid for version, because I think, at the moment you're just gonna
I'm not even making an argument that it's not good value for money or they're ripping you off. I think it's just the fact that the core game progression is in a battle pass, and maybe it's just a weird psychological hill that I'm struggling to get over, the fact that imagine if in Overwatch there was a progression and it was only in from the loot boxes. It's that's not the bonus extra thing, that is the main route of progression is through the battle pass. I just had never seen that before, and it kind of confused me a little bit at first because I pressed square and I saw all of these different things, these different battle passes, and so I didn't work out how to get new weapons because I didn't realize that is how I just get any new weapons is through that.
Yeah, no, I get it. I completely get it. And also the game's not free, so it's you've already paid to get in. Yeah, and then they're charging you again on top of that. No, I get that. And also I think it is.
I wonder if it's to teach players to engage with battle passes, so then they're kind of already there and know how it works, so they're more likely to then get a premium one, because every time they're going to unlock anything, they're looking on that screen and seeing them all there listed directly next to each other.
Yeah, I mean, there was absolutely nothing stopping them from putting the initial unlocks on the menu that you buy your ship parts.
Yeah, on the screen in the immersive, stopping them from it was so much cooler being the diegetic menus in the world, and then it's no, I just press square to bring up the store. Anyway, I've spoken about it too long. It wasn't a deal breaker, but
no.
Shall we talk about the kind of some of the controversy that happened with the PlayStation thing? I think that's just another big story that it's kind of probably worth touching on at least a little bit.
We can. but you need to tell me because I'm not really clear on what happened.
Well, but basically, so the game launched on PlayStation and PC, and initially on PC, you weren't required to sign into PSN in order to play the game. You'll just, kind of be able to play it. I don't know whether you had to make a Helldivers account or whether you're just your Steam account probably or whatever. So you could, just play it. And then the game got really popular, and then PlayStation announced that they were adding a requirement where you have to sign in to PSN in order to play the game, even if you're playing on PC. They said it's for safety and security reasons, and they said that this was always the intention, but there was a technical reason why they couldn't do it at launch. But obviously, from an outsider, it much more looks like, this game became way more popular than anyone expected, and they're like, this is a gold mine to get people to sign up to to make a PlayStation account. I don't know what the truth is there. There was a huge backlash. Arrowhead, the developers, really came out on the player side and were like, this is BS, we don't agree with it. One of the community managers was saying like, you should like review bomb the game. They were asking people to leave negative reviews of Steam on how to like send a message. The other thing was the requirement to sign on to PSN is PSN isn't available everywhere. So there was 177 territories that the game was, for sale, that they were going to stop selling it because PlayStation wasn't available there. And eventually PlayStation caved. They changed their mind. And I think there was something where in some places you had to, but it seems in most cases you now don't need PSN to play the game. But it kind of had a big negative backlash. The player numbers dropped hugely, and it also seemed to align with some other, not backlash, but players that were reaching kind of towards the end of progression and were getting powerful. They were seeing some of these imbalances, and then that's when they kind of, Arrowhead announced this 60-day plan, which was basically, hey, we're going to try and tackle all of these things in 60 days. That kind of culminated in like the big content drop where they added a bunch of new things, like the new faction, like they added like the Jeep vehicles and like loads of bug fixes and balance changes. And then you can kind of see that Helldivers had this giant spike at the beginning. It dropped to like a fraction of what it was. And then it is shot way back up, like in December is in particular. Its popularity grew so much that it's now like the time when it has least players is higher than its peaks from a few months ago. Like they really turned things around. They also got a lot of credit because when a lot of this controversy was happening and there was a lot of this feedback from players saying about what they want, they were messaging and basically they replied saying, yes, like we're going to fix that. But everyone's like, no one's in the studio at the moment because they're all on their big summer holidays at the moment. And we're not going to make people work overtime and crunch to fix this. And so they got a lot of credit for that and kind of taking their time and not doing like a quick fix or just sort of throwing in something flashy immediately. Is like, no, they went and fixed a bunch of stuff on the back end, seemed to improve a bunch of the balancing, and it's really paid off for them. And they've proven that it wasn't like a flash in a pan game, and this is probably going to be a game with some legs that's going to go forward.
Yeah. When like PSN wanted you to log in, whenever any big company wants you to do anything like that, it's because they want to track and upsell. That's the only thing they want to do.
Yeah, of course.
That's all it is. Like they're like, it's for safety and security. It's like, well, why wasn't it there when the game came out there?
Yeah, and how is it now suddenly okay to not have it? Now you got the negative backlash.
Yeah, it's bad. But speaking of in-game politics, I'm not really sure what the big joke is of the game. Like, I'm not really like Super Earth are bad. You play as Super Earth, but they're evil. They're doing, it seems like, from what I could pick up from like reading notes, all of the stuff that's wrong and all of the wars that they're fighting are from their own undoing. Like, they basically did this to themselves. And their managed democracy thing is like really bad. But I don't know if a lot of the people that play the game realize this. Which makes me think, like, is it actually a good joke? Like, if no one understands it, is it actually good?
So I rewatched... So the game is heavily inspired by Starship Troopers.
Yeah.
Which I saw, like, when I was, like, a younger teenager. And I rewatched it again recently. And there was stuff that I recognized from it. I didn't realize just how close. Like the opening cutscene that plays in Helldivers 2, like they do that throughout all of Starship Troopers with these sort of like news broadcast things and like click to find out more. And I was like, okay, so the tone is exactly Starship Troopers, and the gameplay, like especially like killing the bugs, is extremely Starship Troopers. When they started like throwing grenades down bug holes to like kill them, like in Starship Troopers, I was like, oh, I didn't realize how specific, like that's what the film is about, and that's like one of the main things you do in the game. And so I think they're taking that tone, but I think like you, there's probably people that have missed it. There are some stuff that makes it like some parts that I really like when you're looking in like the store to buy things and there's like fake reviews from people being like oh, like I could smell like the sweat and glory in it when I put it on for like a helmet, or my wife said it's like I got to buy this, or it's her or this, and like I'll miss her like sorely or whatever. Like that sort of stuff's really funny, and I think the opening cutscene is like is really funny. I like a lot of that stuff. But in terms of like deeper narrative, in terms of are you the goodies or the baddie, and like I've not dived deep into that. I just like the parody of, you know, realistically American military propaganda, because a lot of that stuff, like we probably get it a little bit less because we see it less, but from the stuff that I've seen when they're like, you know, like doing like flyovers at Super Bowl of like jets and stuff and like all that hoorah, like it's sort of like the extreme future version of that, like I do think is quite funny.
Yeah, the like it doesn't need to be like Spec Ops: The Line or something. Like it doesn't need that at all. Like it's funny as it is. I just don't know if maybe it's a little bit too buried in there, where it's like, I don't know if people don't get it, if it's that funny.
I think it's more. I think Spec Ops: The Line is more about like the military and military operations and like the psychology of soldiers. I think this isn't going for like, this is about media. This is a parody. This is about military media, not about military actions. I don't think. I think it's a satire of the whole media circus that surrounds war. And so I think it's more going for that rather than like the actual actions of war.
Yeah, and like patriotism as well, like toxic patriotism, where like you love it so much you can't imagine anything else other than serving Super Earth. But yeah, like the bugs, they're like the Terminid bugs. Basically, what happened was the Super Earth were farming them to use them for fuel to power the ships, and then they broke out. So like that's where they've come from, which is why it's now become a problem. And like the cyborgs or the automatons, that was like a previous race that they went and they thought they wiped them out and they've come back for revenge. So it's like all the stuff that's going wrong is like you just brought it upon yourself because you just wanted like, I don't know, to colonize absolutely everywhere.
I didn't know. So where did you get that from?
There's just like notes and stuff in the maps you can read. Like
okay.
Yeah, so. But yeah, like Super Earth, I think they're bad. Like the managed democracy thing is basically like you tell them your opinion, or you basically choose, you like fill in a questionnaire and then they tell you who to vote for based on your answers, and you don't get to choose. So it's like, okay, so they just vote for whoever they want, and then they tell you that it's because that's what you wanted. So it's like all of that. It's just, I don't know. It's definitely like, interesting.
When you're going to like the pods, like the drop pods, and there's like a line on the floor and it says, only heroes beyond this point. Like stuff like that. That makes me laugh.
That is funny. Yeah, that is funny.
If there's people that aren't picking up on the satire, I mean, that's kind of part of satire, is people miss it. You know,
true.
The amount of,
true.
You know, like the Onion articles and stuff that you just see like people like retweeting because they don't realize it. You know, it's like that's kind of sometimes part of the fun, is when other people don't pick up on it, and it's like, as long as we do, like I don't think I think there's a level of subtlety you need, and once you go too overt, it kind of I think it goes into more like parody than satire, and I think this is more on the satire side rather than straight over the top parody.
True.
So
true.
I think they walk that line like okay, I think, and I enjoy that side. It's a refreshing tone, whereas so many shooters are, you know, the last multiplayer shooter I played was was Black Ops, you know, like, and
Yeah,
I
of
much
course,
preferred
yeah,
the tone of Helldivers 2.
Yeah, I think one thing they could have lent on more, which I thought was really funny, is they're like, intro training is really bad. And it's like they could have lent on that more, and like all of your voice lines in the game and everything could be like, you don't know what you're doing. It's like when you bring a car in, just being like, I don't know how to drive this, but like I'm going to give it a go, and like make it funny. And like when you're blowing up your friends, like I've called something in, but I don't know what it's going to be. Like,
I guess when you go to things that are like, because you're doing missions repeatedly, something that plays more as an absolute joke rather than like a tone piece. Once it gets repetitive,
yeah,
maybe
that's true.
that would stop being funny, possibly.
That is true. That is
you know,
true.
But someone just shouting like, you know, like for democracy, you know, that's sort of like like that's less of it. That's just more setting the tone, but is like will kind of keep making you chuckle, I think.
Have you got anything else, or should we move on to questions?
Yeah, I want to talk about like kind of just some of like the technical and visual side of it. Like one of the things, like I think the game looks amazing. I think the lighting and the fog in particular are really impressive. Some of like the weather effects that come in look amazing. But like I think some of the performance issues are a shame. Like one of the things when I first loaded up the game is I had no audio. I had audio at first for like the menus and stuff, and then in the game I had no audio, and it turns out that with a recent update, it broke the audio for like surround sound, like Dolby Atmos, and so I had to turn that off. And so I'm sure they'll fix that. But that was like my first impression, was that opening cutscene with no sound and having to reload it.
Yeah.
And then the game loaded up and I was like, oh, it looks like really blurry. And I was like, why is this so blurry? And then I was like, oh, it's in performance mode. And I did quality mode and it looked way better. But then the game couldn't hold 30 FPS. I was like, okay, I've got to play performance mode. And I was like, it looks really bad. And I looked it up. It's 1080p on PlayStation 5 by default. And you know, I'm not expecting every game to be 4K 60, especially a game like this with so many enemies on screen and multiplayer and explosions and stuff. But the fact that it was an unstable 60 FPS, like it would sometimes drop really bad.
Really badly, yeah.
I was like, this is surprising. But like, it looks still... It's a beautiful 1080p because the art direction is so good and some of the other aspects. And so looking into it, it's because they were using a engine called Stingray. So they were using an engine called Stingray, and the engine got discontinued during development. So
oh man, okay.
It was the engine they used to make Helldivers 1 on as well, which is probably why they stuck with it. And so basically they had no support for like the engine like halfway through development, or maybe even early on in development. And so basically their programmers were having to like do all these add-ons and like basically do all of these tricks because they wanted it to look and, you know, play like a modern game, but this engine was discontinued. And so it seems like it was a really tough technical challenge to do. So I think that might explain why. And I know on PC, I think it's got better now, but at launch there was a lot of complaints about performance on PC as well. So it's not just a PS5 thing. But yeah, there were times when the frame rate really heavily dropped, and like that's also on kind of compromised image quality of 1080p. And I'm not the biggest kind of critique for that stuff. You know, like I understand it, like especially now knowing the engine, but that was something that did stand out to me compared to, you know, other games that, you know, have been released in 2024 on PS5. It was technically it seems to be a slightly compromised experience, but it's got, you know, it just makes me think about like, oh, this is a live service game. Are they going to be continuing to develop Helldivers for 2, 3, 4, even more years? And like, what is it going to be like on that engine in that time now? Like, I wonder, are they thinking of doing an engine switch, or maybe to support this game for not as long and look towards Helldivers 3 possibly?
Well, it's also quite buggy as well. Nothing really bad, but one consistent bug that we got, I'd say probably every other game, would be you'd complete an objective, and even though it would be completed, it wouldn't leave the map. So it would look like it was still there. So sometimes one person in your group would do the objective and then not really say anything. Just like, oh, I'm here, I'll just do it. And then you'll also be running around looking for it. And it's like, oh no, I did it. It just doesn't disappear off the map until you complete the mission. It's a very small bug, but it's quite an annoying bug to have. Especially because the map is like you're looking for the red areas for like where the objectives are. And it's like, oh, don't ignore the top right one because it is actually done. Another one I had, I fell through the map, but I mean, there's so much going on in the game that I can't really, you know, that's bound to happen, isn't it? at some point.
Yeah, I actually had, in terms of bugs, I was, well, apart from the enemies, I didn't actually. Maybe it's just because I came from playing Stalker 2.
Yeah.
So maybe I kind of I came from the deep end. I do know that at launch it was apparently really bad, and that was part of this 60-day plan was there was a lot of quite bad bugs. It seems like they've seemed to fix. So I didn't personally run it, apart from that one which we faced together. I didn't run into too many, thankfully.
Mate, it's mad that you said 1080p is blurry. A few years ago, that would have been like, oh my god, it's so clear. Like,
it was the fact like I think I could accept if it was 1080p like locked 60.
Yeah.
But the fact it's like really, as for a PlayStation 5, kind of really as low of a resolution as could be acceptable, and then even that couldn't give a smooth experience. Like, it was like the game was still. There was a time when I was playing with you, and I was like just looking at the sun and like mesmerized, walking towards it because it looked so good with the fog and like the art direction. Like I do think the game like overall looks amazing, and I bet with a mad PC rig, like you could probably crank those settings up a little bit higher. But like I'm someone who's always, when like they released the PlayStation Pro recently and they were kind of showing those side by sides of Ratchet and Clank and like zooming into the crowd in the background, I was like, I still can't even see the difference. I was like, you're not selling it. But if like the way to, I think, sell those sort of mid-gen refreshes is just be like, oh yeah, Helldivers 2 will run at like 60 FPS locked now, and it will be a, the frame rate will be 1440p. Whatever, like something that's like, oh, okay, that sort of, so these games that are struggling to run, and it seems at this point in the generation, like it feels like it's almost every game in the podcast there's performance issues. Like almost any Unreal Engine game, like Unreal Engine 5 game, is having performance issues. Like happened in Silent Hill, like especially more like open world games. Like it's like games are struggling to run at the moment. I think it's a case where ambition and hardware, isn't lining up quite right at the moment.
They have announced. I was just looking it up. They have actually announced a PS5 Pro patch for this game, but they haven't said what it's going to be. So we're not sure. Mm-hmm. But it is 1080p 60 or like some funny 1480 by 30 for the quality mode. So maybe it'll just be the quality mode on 60. I don't know. I'm not sure.
And the other thing is it changes, all the UI elements change as well. That's the easy way just to see if you're switching quality and performance. It's just like the menus are blurrier, like on screen. Yeah.
Okay. No, that's fair enough. Should we do the questions?
Yep.
Right. This is a good one. Blueberry on YouTube said, as the official 2024 Bonus Points community vote Game of the Year winner, now that you guys have played it, do you generally agree with their choice? If you guys had played it last year, would it have ended up on your list?
Ooh, that's a good question, actually.
That is a good question, isn't it? I can't remember what was on. I think it probably would have done, but I would say maybe in the 7-8 region is probably where I'd end up putting it.
Yeah, I'm looking at my list here.
I don't think I can get mine. I think I deleted it.
Yeah, I'm not so. Number 10 is Thank Goodness You're Here.
Mm-hmm.
And it's just, this is kind of all we do here. It's like I'm trying to think of what they're so different. I don't even know how to compare them. You know what? I think I'd probably, even though we are about to rank it on a list, I think I'd need to play Helldivers 2 more before I would really commit that for like personal game of the year. I think I'd feel like I would need to play it more to do that judgment. But yeah, it would certainly be in the running. But it wouldn't have been like topping my list or anything, I don't think.
No, it wouldn't be top. No, it wouldn't be top for me. But I think maybe 7-8 kind of area I could imagine putting it.
Yeah, maybe 9-10 area. I got Indica 9, Thank Goodness You're Here 10. So maybe would have pushed one of those down, possibly.
Yeah, I mean the good thing about these multiplayer games is like, if you've got good friends to play with, they're always a winner. Even if this game is good, but even if it wasn't, it'd still be fun because you're playing with your friends, right?
Yeah.
Okay, this one we kind of touched on already. But Mr. Kebab on YouTube says, how did you feel about the weapon armor progression? Did it seem like you were able to experiment and unlock new things fast enough, or did you end up having to commit to boring grinds or pay to unlock war bonds? For people without a ton of time on their hands, it seems kind of slow to me. I agree that it does seem kind of slow, but seeing the amount of free stuff that there is, I can see why it is that slow, because otherwise you'd burn through it in 3 or 4 sessions. Because I got halfway through the free stuff in the 1 week that I played, so I can see why it's slow.
Often
I do think it's slow.
Often games also, the progression gradually slows the more you play. So we probably saw it as, I don't know, but often it will be you need 100 experience to level up, and now you need 200, and then you usually start leveling up slower, and the stratagems aren't just locked behind, I can't remember whatever currency you need to get them, but also your level. And that was the thing that was holding me up. Was I've got enough to buy it, but I need to be I wanted to buy the jump pack. And it's I can afford it now, but I need to be level 8. And so I was kind of okay, let's grind out the level. Because I was I don't want to buy anything else because then I won't be able to afford the jump pack once I reach it. Yeah. But I think that was, I don't think I would have found it too slow if it wasn't I've got a week to play it and I want to see as much as I can before the podcast. I think that added a bit more time pressure. But I think the early game progression, I could afford a new stratagem every 1 or 2 games in the early game from what I played, and that seems fine. The other areas are a bit slower, as I said, upgrading the ship and stuff, but that's less directly gameplay affecting. So the early game seemed okay to me, but your experience may vary, and I don't know about later game what it does it turn into a grind.
Yeah, I didn't even realize that the armor was affecting your speed and your stamina and stuff till the very last time I played. Because I was buying it from the War Bonds menu, then just equipping it. Wasn't looking at it in the armory. Only when you look at it in the armory is it's separated into 3 levels, and it tells you you can carry more stuff. And I had no idea that that was the case.
Yeah, I'd wonder if I crouch or go prone, my guns are more accurate. So you might have seen me crouching around a lot. That was why. Also get shot in the back less.
Yeah, true. Okay. Kai Searle on YouTube asks, I always struggle getting into multiplayer games due to the lack of an end or definitive conclusion. Is this something either of you consider? Then they said, because Helldivers is one of the few games for me where this isn't an issue. Yeah, for me, like I said earlier on, it did kind of feel a little bit what are we doing here? I don't know. There's something about this particular game that, because it didn't grab me, I don't know. It doesn't feel like I'm going towards a greater goal. Do you know what I mean? I don't know why that is. I couldn't tell you why this game in particular has me feeling like that, with something like Overwatch never did, which also doesn't have an ending. I guess in Overwatch you have your rank, but I didn't really play ranked. So I don't know.
Yeah, I think I kind of touched on it earlier, so I don't want to go into it. I'm just someone that I don't feel like I need that. Most of my hours, as I said, playing Halo and Quake as well, is just custom games where I'm just playing for the fun of the game, and that's kind of enough for me. Obviously, progression is inherently quite satisfying, and it's nice to it could be over. If they gave all the stratagems at the beginning, it would have been too many and overwhelming. So I do appreciate that, but I don't think if the core game is good enough, I don't need that. I'll just play it for the game.
Do you think we would have had a different time if we picked it up when it launched? That's the question from me, by the way.
I think, by the sounds of it, I think we would have had a slightly worse time. It seems with some of the improvements and the additions that they made, I think there would have been something for time and place and the groundswell and being part of the community and the discussion and the excitement. There would have been an element of that, but it seems like the best time to play Helldivers is whatever day it is now. It seems like it just keeps improving.
Yeah, no, fair enough. Right, shall we put it on the list?
Yeah, let's put it on the list.
Did you know we have a Patreon? Maybe you're unsure what that is.
Patreon allows you to support us directly, and in return you get exclusive stuff. Access to our Discord server, behind-the-scenes content, and an exclusive podcast series.
Your support means we can up our production and continue making fun videos. You can join us at patreon.com/thebonuspoints. And it has a free trial too.
Woohoo! So Helldivers 2 is going to be the 78th entry dropping onto the list. It's been a little while since we've had a look at this list. Quite nostalgic, isn't it?
It's like it's new to me looking at it.
Look at our life in the last 3 years laid out. ahead of
What was
us.
the last one we did? Metal Gear Rising. Where's that? Where is it?
There's too many games. To
Oh, there it is. 47.
quickly
40.
glance
Okay,
now.
it was like middle of the pack. Middle of the pack was the last one. Metal Gear
Okay, well,
Rising
shall
was
we-
47.
Well, shall we start there and say, is Helldivers 2 going to go above or below Rising?
Just going to go above Rising. There's no question about that for me.
There is a question. I just answered. The answer can be yes, Ollie. So, what sort of area are you thinking of then?
I think it could be top 25.
So
But
25.
Yeah,
25
Yoshi's-
area.
yeah.
That's the Nintendo group. We've got Earthbound at 23, Pikmin 24, Yoshi's Island 25.
I think it's better than Yoshi's Island. I'd put it above Yoshi's Island for sure. Pikmin
Bigger
4.
explosions. That's why. That's what you're baiting that off.
Pikmin 4, Earthbound. I don't know. What do you think?
God, I don't know why multiplayer only games I find harder to rank. I find it's why I struggled as well when we're talking about like my personal top 10. It's really hard to compare a multiplayer game to like a story game for some reason. Like I know a lot of these comparisons are always hard, but there's something more difficult about comparing time spent in a multiplayer game compared to like playing through a game for some reason.
In what way? Do you think it's because your friends add so much to it that it becomes...
Maybe it's just
difficult?
harder to pick. Yeah, like I'm trying to rank like which one do I like more, and I think they're just such different experiences. It's harder.
That's the podcast, mate.
I don't know. I get it, and I enjoy that challenge. But like, say if I was saying like, oh, like we're comparing two like main meals compared to two desserts, that's easier.
Yeah.
This is like comparing like I'm comparing a pie to a blancmange. You know, it's like they're difficult to compare because they're doing such different things, and I get different types of enjoyment out of them. It's just a little bit more difficult. But anyway, I am treading water here.
Yeah.
I think the same general area. Maybe even a little bit higher. I think I'd probably take it up to around kind of Infinite Wealth Undertale area.
Yes.
I think.
I was thinking the same. I was actually thinking the same. I think
I don't know if my
maybe...
mic's picking it up, but my dog is snoring behind me. I really hope the mic picks it up a bit.
She thinks the show's boring. She's sleeping through it. I don't think I'd put it above Like a Dragon. But I think that's a good place for it. It would be number 23. I think Like a Dragon is just doing so much more cool stuff. Like that was such a fun experience. We don't have to rely on anyone else like for it to be fun either. Like it's just fun on its own. So
yeah, I think that was also, and I don't know if this is how we should rank it. I think it was more interesting for me having not played any of those games, and it was more of an unexpected surprise and the love that I had for kind of those characters. Whereas Helldivers 2 was kind of, it was really exactly what I expected. And that isn't to say, and I had high expectations because I knew how much people loved it. I thought I was going to really enjoy it and find it fun. And it kind of exactly delivered what I expected it to do. Which isn't a negative, because I expected it to be a lot of fun and it was a lot of fun. Whereas Infinite Wealth, was a bit more of I just didn't know what to expect with it, really.
okay, so then I guess that's settled. So Helldivers is now number 23.
Don't think they're all going to be this easy this year.
Do you know what? I think Infinite Wealth was the first game we did last year.
Oh, really?
I think. Someone in the comments will tell me I'm wrong, but I think it was, yeah.
Yeah, because the game came out really early, didn't it? So
it did,
and we did it close after release.
Yeah. Okay, so now I'll just do 21 to 25. So 21 is Undertale, 22 is Like a Dragon Infinite Wealth, 23 is Helldivers 2, 24 is Earthbound, 25 is Pikmin 4.
And if anyone's listening to the audio-only version, there's always a link to just the list as it was before that episode. So if you are curious, want to refamiliar yourself, the list is getting longer and longer and longer. So if ever you're kind of curious to see, well, what's above Helldivers 2, you can always go and check it out.
And now you can just go to bonuspoints.com because that's where the list is now. So there we go. We're online. We got a website. We're official after 3 years. we owned the website.
We had
the whole
the domain
time.
sitting there just in case.
All right, sweet. That was very easy. Do you want to hear what is coming up?
Yeah, we only have next one, right? Locked
we only
in.
have one locked in, which is 1,000 Times Resist on January 24th. That's available on PC and Switch, and I assume Steam Deck. It probably works on Steam Deck. It's a narrative game. It's about 10 hours long. That's all I know, and everyone loves it. It got really good reviews. So.
Yeah, this was one that we were both kind of really up for, and I think for both of us it probably came about from everyone discussing Game of the Year 2024, and everyone being really hot on it, and like everyone saying about how great it is, and I had to keep skipping past on the podcast anytime they started talking too much about it. So I really don't know anything about this game other than people really like it. Like I downloaded it yesterday, and I was like, oh, it looks kind of like slightly anime-ish. I didn't know that at all.
Yeah.
Like it looked, I didn't like literally. I know nothing about this one. So this is going to be, unlike Helldivers 2, one that I'm going in with, very little expectation. All I know is that apparently the story is really good, and so going in completely blind. So if you want to join us, as Ollie said, available on Switch and PC.
Yeah, I think that's it for us for now.
Cool, awesome. So yeah, thank you everyone for coming back for the new year. If this is the first podcast you've ever watched, you're like, new year, new me, new podcast. What's this bonus points? Hopefully we didn't disappoint. And yeah, we'll see you all in 2 weeks' time to discuss 1,000 Times Resist.
Sweet. Thanks everyone.
Cheers. Bye.